everyone. Or, excuse me, no, that's not what I'm doing. Happy New Year, and welcome to the Culture Cast. I'm Chris Stashew, and I am joined by my good friend and one half of the one-season show, Jess Byard.
Hello.
Is it half? One half. You're half. One half doesn't make any sense.
One half, but that's what people like. That's what old school cookbooks say.
One half
sugar.
Yeah, one half. Half of the one-season show. And honestly, the true brains behind the operation. Jess Byard. So Jess, before we talk about the movie we're going to talk about, a couple things we need to get out of the way. It is now 2020, and for two people who wear glasses, what a fucking joke it is to be alive in the year 2020 when we can't see 2020. Gotcha. Also, yes, we are still talking about David Lynch. We didn't, because of the holidays, we didn't get
holidays fucking suck.
Yeah, dude. Why is New Year's a fucking thing?
Dude, I don't know. It just extends the holiday, and I'm like, can we just stop? Can we all just get back to reality, please?
Yeah, because it's like, the issue with New Year's that I have as someone who creates content, and you probably run into the same thing, the days between Christmas and New Year's should just be a holiday for everyone. Because,
they really should.
What does it even fucking matter? Like, if we're going to have New Year's as a holiday, and it's like 5 days, 6 days, a week, not even after, it's like 6 days after Christmas, like, just give everybody that time off.
Well, I meant, like...
It's like, you can't get anything done.
No, and especially because, like, with holidays now and people with multiple families that they have to go to and shit, people are rarely only doing Christmas events on the day of Christmas. Like, exactly. I had to do 2 on the 29th.
Merry Christmas!
Right,
4 days
exactly.
later.
And it's just, God, like, it's just...
Well, I had family here from...
It's a dead zone. It's a dead zone of reality.
I had family here from the couple days before Christmas until the day after New Year's Day, which, by the way, is an actual holiday in New Zealand, which is I find to be just absolutely hilarious. And so, I mean, I got stuff done, namely cooking a 12-course meal for my family, which in and of itself is a fucking ordeal. But, like, I didn't get this kind of stuff going because, again, it's like there's just I know that's what that's going to be for some time. So yeah, like it's the time between New Year's and Christmas is so weird. So excuses on my end aside, because I was the reason we pushed this podcast back. We are going to be talking about Mulholland Drive, the final film of David Lynch December. However, we still have one David Lynch movie to talk about eventually at some point to cover the final David Lynch film of up until this point right now of 2020.
Maybe it'll be a Patreon exclusive.
Oh, maybe. Yeah, you know what? Oh, that's a good idea. Patreon. Yeah, go give to Patreon. Ooh, yeah, see, you're the brains of this operation too. Jesus Christ.
Chris, that's why I decided that I wanted to be on this show twice a month.
That's right. So that's the other kind of important topic to talk about is Jess will be joining me more often now, which I am appreciative of because I do appreciate people that I can rely on. If you take that as a slight, it's probably because you deserved it. But I don't know if you listen to this podcast anymore, so what the fuck does it matter? But anyways, yeah, so we're starting the new year off right by finishing out last year, so we're technically finishing last year wrong, but...
We're just extending the holiday.
We're just extending the holiday of David Lynch December, a holiday everyone should celebrate by talking about his I guess one of his his probably most well-known film.
I would say yeah. I would think that this is probably widely considered by most people who are film fans to be David Lynch's most well-known piece, aside from like Eraserhead and Blue Velvet, which I have a problem now as I've gotten myself so far into the film.
We all have problems.
I have so many problems. But no, as I dug myself further into like the film, cinephile hole, I don't know what normal people don't know about anymore. I don't know
tell you
what
normal people don't know what podcasts are.
Well, that's fair, but I don't know how much of a cinema fan you have to be to know Blue Velvet and Eraserhead. I guess Eraserhead is probably his most well known. I think
Twin
at least
Peaks
by imagery.
I think Twin Peaks is. Honest to God.
Well, that's fair. I guess
Twin
I was only
Peaks
looking at it from the cinematic.
Well, I mean, there were people
Twin Peaks
who...
is cinematic.
Well, I mean, there are people who now with the, oh my god, my best... look, can we talk about one other thing since now we're in a different decade? No one cares about your best of the decade list, people. Yeah.
That's why I just put together, my 50 favorite films of the decade, and I threw them on a letterbox list, and I said, there you go, because... Sure, yeah, I like looking back at people's lists and seeing what they liked,
it's not
but
for me.
It's for me.
Yeah, and going on websites and then being our top picks for movies of the decade, nobody cares. And
and they're the same top picks as the same 10 sites you just read the same fucking article for.
And you and I are going to do a year-end wrap-up for 2019 that's probably going to be the next podcast. However, that's different because we're just talking about the movies from last year, which that's honestly a bigger pool of things, and our lists are going to be more different or kind of more diverse than best of the decade, because best of the decade, like you said, it's kind of always the same stuff. Realistically, and honestly, do I really want to dig through 10 years of stuff to find no. And I don't even know if a movie that came out in the last 10 years is my favorite of anything ever anyways.
I mean, honestly, all I did to put together my 50 favorite movies of the decade were I went on my Letterboxd and I clicked to show me all the movies that I watched that came out, in the 2010s. And I just picked everything that I gave a 3.5 or more stars above, and I threw them in a list.
Yeah, see?
So it's that's the most just easiest way I can put together a list. And I am a huge list maker. I like collections. I like to see things collected.
Who doesn't?
Right. But I don't know, as far as just the regular websites go, it's just every year people make those top 10 lists, and every website has the same exact top 10 list, barring maybe one or two movies, but they're all pretty similar.
Did you know that people loved Us? Did you know that people loved Knives Out? Did you know? Yeah, no shit. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, because they're talking about it forever.
Yeah, they're mainstream fucking movies that are made for mainstream audiences. And by the way, most of these mainstream websites are never going to reference anything not mainstream because they don't want people to go, I don't know what the fuck this is, I'm closing the list.
Right.
Even the movie websites, the quote-unquote movie websites don't really dig deep into stuff because they're just Knives Out is good, or Godzilla, King of the Monsters. Fuck you. Maybe give an opinion about something that's a little, I don't know, or it's just kind of it's very generic. Why are you even making the list?
I always try to include at least and some people don't do this for. So I've heard varying reasons, and I see that sometimes people won't put movies from that they saw on festivals or limited screenings on their lists because they want their list to be accessible to people. And so people don't want to read a list of movies that they're never going to be able to see, essentially. If you go to Fantastic Fest and you pick 10 movies that don't have distribution or anything yet, then I guess I kind of get it, but it's just dig deeper, because there are there's with all of the streaming shit that is available now and just access to movies, I kind of wish people would do their best of lists, or just best of things that they personally discovered that year. Not necessarily movies that had to come out. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's yeah, sure, you can include those if they were some of your favorite things, but honestly, just look back at your year and figure out what you watched overall and make that list. That's the list I want to see, because that's going to be the more diverse one, and that's going to be the one that's most personalized and uniquely to you and your taste, and is going to, enlighten me as to who you are.
Maybe that's what we should do on the next episode. Instead of doing best of 2019, just best of what we watched last year.
Yeah. Because you know what? Because honestly, I didn't watch a lot of 2019 movies, I don't think.
No, me either. I mean, Cats is number one.
Oh, well, obviously.
I mean, somebody's getting a paycheck for that movie.
Followed up by The Grudge.
Yeah, and followed up by Rise of Skywalker, the most controversial film of 2019. A Star Wars movie about space wizards. Made for children. Cool. Great.
You know what? I just saw an advertisement on the Criterion channel. They have a new collection called 70s Sci-Fi. And it's just pre-Star Wars sci-fi is such a wonder. It's just so nice to watch.
What about
and
Dune?
Look at. Exactly.
Dune is post-Star Wars sci-fi.
Yeah, but it's
also pre-Star Wars sci-fi because it was written before Star Wars.
Right, yes.
Oh, God. So,
and it doesn't have any Star Wars referencing at all, unlike every sci-fi movie that comes out.
No, because Star Wars ripped off Dune. I mean, like, Star Wars ripped off the Bene Gesserit. Like, that is literally like Jedis, pretty much. Like, just kind of ripped them off. Like, you're in touch with the universe. Like, that's the Force. Good job, George Lucas. You're very creative. A creative man. And you pretty much also just wrote Joseph Campbell's, whole, like, idea of how to tell a story in just a sci-fi form for, the mainstream audiences. And look, now the movie is making billions of dollars and everyone who loved it hated the new one. So, cool. But so we're kind of all over the place right now. But David Lynch, December. This is it. This is the end. Mulholland Drive. I had never seen it, but yeah, let's talk about Mulholland Drive.
I can't believe it. I'm just so excited to be here. I'm in this dream place.
This one comes highly recommended.
Dream place. What are you doing?
Get out of the car.
Yes. The girl is still missing.
What's wrong?
I don't know who I am.
I wonder where you were going. Mulholland Drive. Come on, it'll be just like in the movies. We'll pretend to be someone else.
This is all an illusion.
You want to know who you are, don't you?
Where's this going?
Mulholland Drive.
It's been a very strange day.
Getting stranger.
I've been so pumped for this.
I know you have.
Since we announced it.
You've been like we text pretty often, but like every day you're probably like, I can't wait to talk about Mulholland Drive. Like, oh Jesus, like Christ. So it is written and directed by David Lynch. He has sole writing credits on the film, which that might not sound like much, but that is actually not common for David Lynch because a lot of the things that he wrote either adapting someone else's work, like Dune, like Wild at Heart, like Lost Highway. The Straight Story is adapting someone's life.
Right, yeah, so you have a story to base, you have plot points and key points that you have to follow.
Or he worked with someone else, like Elephant Man, like Twin Peaks. Mm-hmm. So his three, I think it's 3 films that he has written himself for. Eraserhead, Blue Velvet, this film, Mulholland Drive, and Inland Empire. Those are his 4 solo acts.
Right.
And actually, he didn't even write The Straight Story, which is even more surprising when you think about it, because The Straight Story was actually written by John Roach and Mary Sweeney, so he didn't even have a hand in that, which I watched parts of it because I was like, well, I need to probably be ready in case we do it. And again, holiday got in the way. It doesn't feel like a David Lynch movie at all.
Right.
Which is fine.
Yeah, it's just solely directed by him and probably just in a very matter-of-fact way.
Yeah. But, so this is one of...
Because I've not seen that one either.
Yeah. But this is one of the 4 that he is sole ownership in the writing chair for, at least on paper. Again, behind the scenes, different story, but... I mean, this isn't fucking Star Wars. There's not like a mandate from the studio. It's got to be X, Y, and Z things. This is a David Lynch film.
Right.
So...
And those, 3 out of 4 of those would probably be my 3, top 3 favorite David Lynch movies. Like cinema, in the
you're talking
purely
Eraserhead,
cinematic.
Blue Velvet, and Mulholland Drive, not Wild at Heart.
Not Inland Empire.
Oh. Wait, hold on. If it's Blue Velvet, oh yeah, no, it's not Wild at Heart. Yeah, Inland Empire, yeah, no. Yeah, no.
Yeah. Blue Velvet, Blue Velvet, Eraserhead, and Mulholland are my probably top 3. Which, that's not really going outside the box as far as a David Lynch fan goes. But you know what? Fuck it. They're good movies.
David Lynch also only has, 11 movies, so...
Right, yeah. 11 movies in a career that spanned 50 years.
Yeah, so, that's perfectly fine.
He's got a lot of short films and things like that.
David Lynch cooks quinoa, like weird things. Look, he also has Twin Peaks, so let's not...
Well, yes.
But he didn't...
Twin Peaks Return is all on him.
Yes, which is perfectly fine, because giving that to him...
Absolutely.
Yeah, is great. However, I am curious, Jess, now that we're here, we're knocking on the door, what did you think of Mulholland Drive? Watching it now, because obviously you'd seen it many times before.
I'd actually only seen it like 2 or 3 times before. It's not one that I watch a lot. The first time I ever saw Mulholland Drive was I was 17, and I was in San Francisco for a film program through the Art Institute, and it was the summer between my junior and senior year of high school, and I was there for pretty much like the whole summer, and just taking different film classes, and I took an animation class. But in the building that we were all staying in, that was like an old hotel that was converted into dorms, and it was really awesome, but there was just a kind of rec area where we could all hang out. There was a big TV and movies and pool table and all that. And everybody, a lot of people would go out and, just cruise around San Francisco because we were teenagers and that's what they were doing. But I was being lame and staying in to watch Mulholland Drive. So I put in Mulholland Drive and I sat there and I watched it for mostly by myself in this huge room in the middle of this just like dorm area in San Francisco. And then about halfway through, a couple people just sort of wandered in and sat down and watched the rest of it with me. And we were all just like, what the fuck? So that was the first time that I saw Mulholland Drive. And then I revisited it probably maybe once or twice after then. But this is probably the first time that I had watched it in a good, 5 or 10 years maybe. And it's still, honestly, I watched it twice for the podcast. I watched it once just watching it, and then I watched it again following along with the pilot script that I had. I still love it. To me, like I told you before, and I don't know if you agree, but to me, this is the better version of Lost Highway in a lot of ways. It's not the same movie. It's not the same, plot.
But it is. It's way better. It's
so much better.
It is like if Lost Highway was good. Because
you like Lost Highway.
That's really sad of someone who likes Lost Highway to say. But this movie checked all the boxes for Lost Highway.
Yeah, I think that this is. I don't know if it's my favorite. I probably Blue Velvet is my favorite, but I appreciated this movie a lot more watching it for the podcast this time around. Because like I said, I haven't seen it in 5-10 years. And the first time I saw it, I was 17. I'm 29 now. So, time has passed. And I have watched so many more movies in between those 12, inside those 12 years. And I have gained such an appreciation for Lynch's love for Hollywood and old Hollywood and the idea of starlets and just the seediness of the politics that goes into movie making and casting and things like that. And I picked up a lot more on the Sunset Boulevard, references and tones, parallels with Naomi Watts' character Betty/Diane. It's just there's something when I was watching this movie, I watched it on the Criterion streaming service, and then they have supplements attached, which I think, sidebar, is a fantastic idea, and I wish more streaming services would do that. But I watched an interview.
That requires the streaming service to be made by people who give a shit about movies.
That's true.
But not about Nailed It. Yo, you guys watch Nailed It yet? Yo, it's like where they make desserts, but then they fuck them up. Great, thank you. So good. Boy.
But
not to shit talk if people like that show, but like, come on. God.
yeah, I mean, time and a place. But
no time, no place. Continue.
I just when I went to LA a couple of years ago for work, I love LA, and I know that there's like a lot of people that have gone there, and a lot of people that live there and say they hate it, that the city like chews you up and spits you out and chews you back up, and I get it, that's fine. I've never lived there. I've only gotten to be there one time for work for like 2 weeks. But I loved it. I loved everything about it. I love the way it feels there. I love the energy that just is there. That's, from all these people who are just hustling and trying to make something and just trying to get shit out there. It just, I don't know. There's just a feeling to it. And David Lynch also feels that way. He has been in love with LA. Like, he's from is he from Nebraska?
Missoula, Montana.
Missoula, yeah, that's right, Montana.
So another state where people don't know what is there.
Right. And he moved to LA, and he said that it was just an instant love affair. He said he woke up one morning and he saw this light, and he'd never seen like a light just so bright, and the light had it had a feeling behind it that was like a feeling of creativity, and that was just it for him, and he was there forever, and he's still there. And so, yeah, places like Mulholland Drive that are real places, he captures them in, I think, a really interesting and genuine way. And it's a way that it's a feeling that I totally understand. I totally get his love affair with LA. We were talking off podcast, before. I would absolutely move there in a heartbeat if it weren't for cost. But yeah, Mulholland Drive, I appreciate it so much more than when I saw it the first time. I mean, when I saw it the first time, I was 17. I was like, that was weird. that was a weird movie. I kind of like it. I don't really know what's going on. Revisiting it, I liked it more. And now, like, revisiting it twice for this podcast, it's awesome.
Yes, I agree 100%. It's I think it's also David Lynch's most straightforward movie.
Really?
I honest to God think so. Because David Lynch does, to his credit, he does such a good job of showing you what you need to see to understand what's going on. And this is not, it is pretty much just Lost Highway. But it's not Barry Gifford's and David Lynch's reinterpretation of Barry Gifford's Lost Highway. It's David Lynch's Mulholland Drive. Mm-hmm. And, it's kind of the same movie because it tackles the same themes. And I like that because it made it instantly more approachable for me than if it was just, Inland Empire. Mm-hmm. Which also, this movie is also, by the way, kind of Inland Empire.
Yeah, it is.
It's David Lynch's everything that David Lynch made pretty much after Blue Velvet is kind of the same thing over and over again.
Right. Essentially, if you don't know what the plot to Mulholland Drive is Naomi Watts' character, whose name is Diane in real life, comes to LA, and things do not go well for her. But that's not how we pick up the movie. The movie is picked up where Naomi Watts is coming into LA, and everything is peachy keen, and she meets, what is her name?
Rita. Laura? You mean Laura Elena Harring, Countess von Bismarck-Schonhausen.
Yeah, hot lady.
You said it, not me, but I'm also not disagreeing with you.
She's she's absolutely gorgeous in this movie.
In general. Period.
In general, yes, but the way just David Lynch shoots her and lights her is it's fantastic.
There's a reason she was in the top 10 for Miss Universe in 1985.
Yeah.
And I guarantee you she could be in the top 10 for Miss Universe in 2020.
Yeah, but essentially this movie is the first half of it, which is 2 hours and 27 minutes long.
It doesn't feel it, though.
No, it doesn't. The first, hour and a half-ish, maybe, is a dream. It is Naomi Watts' character's fantasy world of what she wanted to happen when she came to LA as an aspiring actress. And then we go into the harsh reality of what actually happened, which was she didn't get the part because she's not really all that talented. And she also has, been having a relationship with Laura Harring. And in reality, that relationship ends poorly, and she's humiliated and therefore takes a hit out on her Laura Harring's character, Rita. And it, that's not inherently clear because you are going to watch the first hour and a half of this movie thinking that everything's, fine and that they're investigating the death of some other woman. And then once everything flips. But yeah, you were saying it's like Inland Empire and that it's about, half of this plot is Justin Theroux's character of Adam Kesher, who is a hot, up and coming director who's being forced to basically pick an actress he doesn't want to pick by this, nefarious mob that David Lynch is always so keen to put in his movies. I love it. I love
the men in the background.
I love the David Lynch surreal mobsters because it's fantastic. I mean, they're in Blue Velvet, they're in Twin Peaks, they're in this, I think they're in Wild at Heart. Are they not?
Yeah, no, they are. But in this one, it's even better because it's Angelo Badalamenti, which is just sure, because you know what? Because he's Italian, anyways.
Yeah, and his the score, that I'm so glad that they met because I mean his score for Twin Peaks is incredible. I love it. I listen to it frequently, and his score for this is also just as beautiful.
I mean, again, it's one of those things where you have someone who puts together a composer who can do good work on his own, but when he works with a certain director, they really make magic.
And I mean,
Angelo Badalamenti is great by himself, but like when he works with David Lynch, I mean, it's just.
I mean, his whole team, the combination of David Lynch, Angelo Badalamenti, and Mary Sweeney is his, his editor. That trifecta is just. Because I can't imagine that capturing David Lynch's vision is easy. And I mean, filmmaking is a collaborative process. Very rare. I mean, yes, you have auteurs, and David Lynch is one, and generally auteur means they wrote and directed it. Maybe they shot it, maybe, but there's a whole other sequence of people happening. And yeah, sure, the director sits in with the editor. They definitely do. And they sit in with the composer, they do that, but that's so that those two people and everybody else can convey the director's and writers, in this case, vision. And with David Lynch, I can't imagine that is a very easy task at all, but it works. Like, it is absolutely a cinematic experience. Like, this is a movie. This...
Jess Byard presents This is a Movie.
This is a movie. I mean,
my life as a podcaster. This is a movie.
Elevated podcasting.
Elevated podcasting brought to you by Jess. This is a movie, Byard. I mean, I agree 100%. When you look at something like Lost Highway, which we talked about a while back, when you look at something like, say, Dune, or you look at something like, say, Inland Empire, Dune, I would say, is the other film of Lynch's, maybe other than Blue Velvet, and I know that that's your favorite, so that's kind of like I'm not trying to attack that movie, but my point is, like, there is something to be said for there being this feeling of, like, a true cinematic experience.
Yeah.
And this film, I think, like you said, I would agree, offers that.
Yeah.
And obviously a lot of other people agree because it is, made multiple lists. Not that lists really matter, but it has made lists of people whose opinions other people trust more than, say, mine or yours, about best films ever made or greatest films of the 21st century, and I would be inclined to agree with them, because it is not only elevating the genre of neo-noir, it's also more approachable than most of David Lynch's films are, because he somehow manages to keep his own quirks in check. And I'm not saying that that's what I want. I'm just saying more that that is what a lot of people who watch movies want from David Lynch. And sometimes that's not a bad thing.
It's not. I will agree. I don't know if I entirely agree that it's like super accessible for a David Lynch movie. I will agree that it is, if you can understand the fact that the first half of the movie is a dream.
And he does a pretty good job of letting you know that it's a dream.
And when you flip over into Naomi Watts' real life, her character of Diane, you realize that the stuff that didn't make sense in the first half of the movie doesn't make sense because it was a dream, and she's effectively repurposing and replacing people that she's seen in real life within sequences in her dream. So, like, the one of the most well-known scenes is the diner sequence, which, yes, that diner is called Winkies or whatever the fuck, but it's supposed to be Denny's. It says Denny's in the script. But
I mean, the little emblem on
yes, oh God,
Betty's thing is a Denny's emblem.
But it's so the characters Dan and Herb are sitting in this diner and having a conversation, and Dan is telling his friend about this awful dream he had, about how he saw his friend standing in that same diner, and when they went outside, there was this evil, just this horrible presence that he never wants to see again, and ever outside the dream. So they go to this specific place because that's where he dreamt about it, and they go out and they find this pretty horrifying, tramp bum-like being that's just sort of living behind the dumpster. And yeah, that part, what is that bum? Who is that bum? It doesn't really matter because it didn't happen. It's not a reality, therefore it doesn't have to have any concrete place in the script. Just like it doesn't really matter why the mob is strong-arming this actress into this movie because it didn't happen. It's in real life, Diane didn't get the part and she lost it to Rita, right?
Yeah.
She lost it to Rita, whose real name is Camilla Rhodes, and who then starts hooking up with Justin Theroux's character, the director, and pretty much tosses Naomi Watts aside because they did have a relationship prior to that. And so if you can just get past the fact that the first hour and a half is a dream and none of it really doesn't matter, like as far as a concrete, the things that happen in it don't necessarily have to have a motivation behind them because it is a dream. And just like when you or I dream or anybody dreams, you populate your dreams with people and presences that you know in real life, whether or not you actually know them. Like you can have a dream about some stranger you saw on the sidewalk just because it's in your brain.
Well, and we again, like I mentioned, you and I, we text back and forth pretty regularly, and we have talked about like, oh, I had a fucking wild dream last night. But like, you're completely right. Like, it is this thing of like, I having only watched it once. And, I mean, I felt like, I'm not trying to say, like, I'm so fucking smart, but, like, I feel like it's kind of hard to avoid hearing about what the movie's about. The movie's been out for a long time at this point.
It came out in 2001, and to be fair, you've also been watching David Lynch movies pretty consecutively, so if you are new to David Lynch, this movie is not going to make a lot of sense to you initially. If you are not new to David Lynch, then you know that everything most definitely has to do with a dream.
Right.
And you have to start thinking in dream logic.
The sleeper has awakened. I mean, that's in Dune. Like, that's in Dune. Like, and that's in the book Dune. That's like, and again, that's what kind of made it so fun that David Lynch is the one who directed that, because it's like already in his wheelhouse. But yeah, this is very much, and you look, I know people would get not upset, but like maybe irked that, the whole movie, like, look, let's be honest here, 80% of this movie is a dream. Like,
right, but you get to spend a lot of time in the reality to understand what actually happened, which is Diane didn't get the part. Camilla Rhodes was her girlfriend, threw her off to the side because she got the part, and then Diane decided, you know what, fuck you, and decided to take out a hit on her, and she gets killed. And then Diane can't handle it, and so she retreats into a dream world where everything worked out, and the only like bad stuff that happens is that Camilla and her are investigating this murder mystery. And I watched a couple of videos, on YouTube, just of people talking about their theories and explaining stuff. And I like this one video I watched. She was talking about how the character of Camilla Rhodes and Rita being sort of split in half in the dream world, where Rita is the dark-haired, sort of, I guess she's not the femme fatale, but she would be in another movie. And she's got amnesia, she doesn't know who she is, and that's the version of Camilla that Diane loves, and that Diane remembers, and that who she fell in love with, and who she wants to get back. We go to the movie set.
It's the one who's reliant on her character.
Yes, who needs her and doesn't, who absolutely needs her. And then, on the other hand, when we're focused more on the actual, production, the movie that Justin Theroux's character is trying to make, which is, I guess, some kind of doo-wop movie, which I'm totally fine with. I love the music in this movie. Like, Angelo Badalamenti's score aside, I love all the doo-wop stuff. I'm a huge fan of crooning music and doo-wop music, and so anytime, like, David Lynch's use of pop culture, I always love. But that character, the actress that is being strong-armed into the picture, she's the version of Camilla that's, the one that hurt Diane. And so in the dream world, Diane split them into two so that she can have, the one that she loves with her. And I don't know. I thought that was a really interesting theory, and I think that there's a lot of truth to it. And
I guess my question to you is there any way to interpret this movie other than that?
Other than that, it's a dream?
Yeah, and that's maybe...
I don't think so. I mean, I think that it is very much like a dream, but I think it's the themes and what the movie's actually about that people can speculate on. Like, what the main plot is about is different from what the movie is about, like what the overlying themes are about. The movie plot is, yes, that's what we've been talking about. Naomi Watts wants to be a star. She doesn't have what it takes. She has a bad relationship. Bad shit happens. She feels bad about it. Fine.
Yeah. Pretty straightforward. Again, pretty straightforward.
Right. Whatever the execution isn't necessarily straightforward, but if you're paying attention, you can figure it out.
I mean, they show someone in bed asleep at the beginning of the movie.
Yes.
Like I said, it's pretty... Again, not that I'm trying to be Mr. Smart Guy, but, I felt like it was pretty straightforward, which I appreciate, but at the same time, talking about maybe something I didn't like so much, I kind of also didn't like that it's so kind of... I mean, look, I don't know how you feel about this, but, shit that's just like a dream. Mm-hmm. Those, it's such a cop-out.
Well, it's a cop-out if you use it at the end of the movie.
Well, yeah, no. It was all a dream.
Yes, that's the cop-out. I think I think the way that he used it... No, and I think that the way that he used it is, I think, one of my personal, like themes that I interpret out of this movie is just... It's the way it was her coping mechanism, because Diane very clearly has some, issues, a lot of confidence issues, a lot of, independence issues and things like that. And her need to kind of just fix everything once she's fucked it up so badly is why she retreats into that dream. And so I don't think that it's a cop-out in that way, because I think that it's something that would be actually pretty real. I mean, people,
that's what dreams
lose their minds all the time. People, totally can lose it and completely live in a different reality because they can't handle the actual, reality of reality.
Well, and, if you do any sort of, research on, dreams or what dreams mean or, what is a dream or what makes a dream exist in your mind. A lot of it is you figuring out a way to cope with things or process things that have happened during the day or in your life, or, and that plays into this movie 100% because she's trying to figure out a way to cope with her failures and the failings in her life. And that, I think for me, that's a pretty interesting way to go about doing it in in a film where it's, kind of not really giving away the fact that it's a dream at the beginning. I mean, it does, but it doesn't.
if you're like, this movie came out in 2001. It was originally written to be a TV show. And I think the pilot script that I read for the pilot episode was 1999. So if this movie were made now, she would probably have retreated into some kind of virtual reality. You know, if this movie were made by not David Lynch now. If it were made by David Lynch now, it would still be a dream. But if it were made by, you know, a more mainstream creator for a more mainstream audience, she would have just, you know, lost herself into some kind of virtual reality or internet persona or whatever. And I like that we don't have that. I do like to watch movies kind of the pre-internet, not pre-internet because internet was obviously around in 2001, but it wasn't so in charge of everything, and it wasn't so...
The interconnectivity of it.
Yes, everybody, you know, there were cell phones in 2001, but not like great ones, and I don't think anybody has one in this movie. I can't remember. I think they have car phones in the limo.
Right.
But so moving on from that, Naomi Watts is a powerhouse in this movie, in my opinion. And my husband and I were talking about it. It's kind of, we can't figure out why Naomi Watts never had a bigger career than she did.
I mean, she was in King Kong. Come on.
Right, yeah. But
Peter Jackson's 4 hours King Kong.
But there's a line in this movie that she says when she's talking to Rita where she's like, I would rather be remembered as a great actress than a movie star. And I think I hope that is how her career is kind of taken on that sort of, you know, trail, I think, of being as just like, she's just a really good actor. She's never going to be like, you know, a huge movie star, but that's fine. Because that's just because you're a huge movie star doesn't mean you're a fantastic actor, right?
Just get that, he's got to get that Marvel money. Come on.
Right.
I mean, realistically, look at Jude Law. I would say that Jude Law is the male version of Naomi Watts.
I can see that.
But Jude Law's been in a Marvel movie, so I guess now I can't say that because he made that sweet
true.
Marvel money.
Yeah, but he was like one of the characters that most people don't care about, and he was hardly in any of the movies.
Also, I think a lot of people also get Naomi Watts confused with Laura Linney, which may not help.
I kind of feel like Naomi Watts and Keira Knightley and Natalie Portman were all like really popular at the same time, and I also kind of feel like they're all kind of the same person, like physically.
Yeah, but Natalie Portman got that Star Wars money.
Yeah, well.
And Keira Knightley also got that Star Wars money.
Oh yeah, she totally did.
Because she played Natalie Portman. I mean, the thing that I will say about Naomi Watts as an actress is, of the women who were coming up in the early 2000s, she is the one that I look at and say I would consider her to be like a quote unquote actress.
Yes.
Like I don't know. I was trying not to be like condescending, but you clearly know what I mean.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know.
She was in The Ring, for fuck's sake. Like, you know.
Which I stand by that movie.
I'm glad someone does.
But no, I think like in this, I think she's, and honestly, because like I said, I hadn't watched the movie in a while, but I kind of forgot how. I mean, she's essentially playing she's playing two different characters for sure. Like just two different versions of a character. And there's a sequence in it where she's actually auditioning for the part, and she's auditioning in this office with a bunch of skeezy men, and the male counterpart that she's acting with, like, you know, it's a point in the audition and in the script they're supposed to kiss, and they're, you know, these lovers that aren't supposed to be together, and so he's got her really close, and that whole sequence of her effectively acting which is weird, it's kind of meta watching an actor have to act like in an audition on a movie, but her just range, her from that, like to go to that from basically Naomi Watts' character in the first half of the movie is this plucky, go-getter, naive, just smile plastered all over her face all the time, and gee golly gosh, everything's fantastic. to go from that personality to the scene that she has to audition for that's just really uncomfortable, and she is amazing in it, and she knocks it out of the park, and this whole just switching over to the second half of the movie where she's effectively just drunk and strung out and paranoid, anxious. I just love it. I think the performances all around in this movie are fantastic, but hers especially, which, you know, she carries the whole movie essentially with Lauren Harring, who's also fantastic. And yes, I guess that means we're at that scene now, Chris.
Well, okay, so here's the thing about this movie.
So hold on. I didn't know you didn't know about that scene.
No.
Because again, this is where I'm at as a film fan. I don't know what's my knowledge versus what's common knowledge.
Or what's even knowledge of your close friend? What does your friend know?
Well,
I didn't even know. Like,
one of the legendary scenes in film.
No, but even I didn't know about it. Like,
yes, that would be the scene between Naomi Watts and Lauren Harring when they officially, you know, hook up. And,
sure.
You know, I've said it in other podcasts, or just in conversations and possibly on other podcasts about David Lynch. In general, you should never, just David Lynch's version of sexy and romance and whatever is always really kind of a little off-kilter and feels kind of weird and also feels kind of dangerous, like in Lost Highway and Wild at Heart. There's always something very dangerous to it and not, you know, loving or gentle or soft at all. And yeah, I agree entirely. I think that he captures the relationship and romance and love between these two characters expertly. And I think that scene in where, yes, it's entire full, you know, nudity on both half, and it's done tastefully. I don't think that I don't think that it's exploitative at all. I think that it's probably one of the best, I hate to say this because it sounds so stupid, love scenes.
Oh my God, Jess, how saccharine did that sound coming out? Full body reaction to saying love.
But it's I think it is one of the most tastefully and beautifully done, sex scenes in a movie, in my opinion.
And it does not involve a man and a woman, which is even more so.
No, it is. It's two women. And in 2001, that was probably pretty shocking for audiences.
Audiences around the country are raving. Lesbians? ?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's, I mean, look, I watched it this afternoon. I actually, I split it up into 3 parts because I had things going on. So I kind of watched the first hour when I was running, and then I watched the second kind of 40 minutes before I went out to lunch. And that is when that scene took place. Mm-hmm. And I remember texting you and being like, whoa, what? And you were just like, how did you not know about this? And I was like, I don't know. MrSkin.com must have failed me or something. I mean, yeah, it is a very sexy scene provided by David Lynch in a way that I would say everyone could consider it sexy. I mean, outside the fact if you're not on board with, same-sex marriage, or same-sex relationship. Yeah, exactly. If you're not on board with that,
why are you listening to this podcast and fuck you?
Do me a favor, just write down your concerns on a piece of paper, roll it up, soak it in some olive oil, and just stuff it right up your ass. Because I don't care, and Jess doesn't care, and Mike White and Mike Wallace don't care, so stuff it up your own ass. But yeah, no, I mean, it is a tastefully done sex scene that would be considered by mainstream society to be a accurate portrayal of love between two people, and like you said, for David Lynch, that's shocking.
It is, because,
there's literally nothing weird that happens. No one is biting nipples. No one is pulling out.
And I mean, that's,
gas masks.
There's nothing kinky happening, sure. No. But I mean, looking at, examining sex and David Lynch, content from Lost Highway, Wild at Heart, which...
Wild at Heart is just... one of the things I didn't like about Wild at Heart is, it felt too much. Like,
it is a lot. It's a height, just everything is sensory overload.
I mean,
and
that's like the first 5 minutes you see Laura Dern naked. And I was just like, whoa, what? And like, I'm not complaining. I'm just saying, like, whoa.
Now, I do think that, like, I do entirely buy the love between Sailor and Laura Dern's character in those movies, but it's a different kind of love. It is a wild at heart. As a Bloodhound Gang would say, it's the kind you clean up with the mop and bucket. Yes, yes, it sure is. And I forgot that song existed.
Well, not anymore. And the crazy thing about Wild at Heart is that that movie was 3 years removed before 3 years before Jurassic Park. It's just like blows my fucking mind. Because it's like Laura Dern as what could ostensibly be called a teenager, and then Laura Dern is like what everyone considers to be like kind of like a middle-aged lady, and it's like she's not
super plain, plain in that movie. But Eraserhead doesn't have any sex, but it is, essentially a story about
sex,
fatherhood. Yeah, like what happens when you becoming parents. Wild at Heart, okay, no. Lost Highway, definitely not. That's terrifying. Blue Velvet, I mean, Jesus Christ.
There's
nothing sexy about that at all.
No.
About Dennis Hopper just calling out for mommy. It's just, ugh. There's no sex in Dune.
There is. There actually is.
Oh, there is.
Tell me about your homeworld, Usul.
That's true.
Yeah, I mean, actually, you know what? That's kind of the funny thing. So thinking about it, with K-Mac and Sean Young, who is essentially giving nothing to do in Dune, that I would say is like the only other David Lynch scene of sexuality that is normal, quote unquote, or could, well, there were phrases, not normal, but could be found sexy by mainstream society.
That's fair.
Because Blue Velvet, they are not going to find that sexy.
No, well, I hope not.
Well, and if you do find it sexy. And if you find it sexy, great. I mean, I'm not gonna kink shame.
I find Wild at Heart sexy. That's only those two, though. Nothing else, and it's not. Not Willem Dafoe. Not any of that. That's not sexy.
What are you talking about?
Just need to clarify right now.
Willem Dafoe is so sexy in that movie. You dummy. You dummy. Oh.
But then we look at Twin Peaks, where Audrey Horne, sure, she's depicted as, this coy, sexy person, but she never actually, hooks up with anybody. And the only other aspects of, like, sex that we see are, one-eyed jacks, which is prostitution, and I'm not shaming sex work at all. It's I wish that sex work was actually, widely accepted so that it could be a lot safer for the people who participated in it. But in this case, one-eyed jacks is illegal.
There'd be a lot less shootings in the world and a lot less angry people in the world if you could just pay someone to fuck you. I'm just going to leave that out there because you know what? As someone who was not like an angry teenager, but like could have been if pushed in the right direction, like, if you're just like, I can pay... Yeah, I got some money in my pocket and I can just go somewhere and it's a safe place.
And it's safe and it's fine and whatever.
Yeah, like, what the fuck? Why does someone else care? Oh, because they have nothing better to do. But I completely agree.
So we have One-Eyed Jacks and Laura
Jess
Palmer.
And Chris shaming everyone.
No, I'm not.
We're not here to sex worker shame or kink shame or, whatever.
No, man.
Shame if you live
do what you want to do as long as it's not hurting anybody else.
Yeah, exactly.
But, then, we have Laura Palmer. And everything else aside from this, and then I guess maybe Dune, David Lynch depicts sex and the outcome of sex very scarily and, dangerous, but not here.
It's like if David Lynch was portraying it.
Yeah, but not here. And here he does something, he writes and directs and, has his cinematographer shoot something that's incredibly real feeling and
intimate.
Like has a real connection.
But then you have the scene later in the movie that shows what David Lynch's sexuality actually looks like, where she like jumps on top of her and is being rather aggressive.
Yes,
and then also the scene,
and that's the reality.
Yeah, and then also the scene of Naomi Watts masturbating,
right, which was very hard for her. I watched an interview with her who they basically. David made this little tent sort of thing around her so that she couldn't see all of the people, that are on set with you. And she really struggled through that scene and had a hard time with doing it. And I mean, he still made her do it, but it's nice to see, like, see a director like David Lynch, who is older. I mean, the man's 77 years old now, I think. And from, he was making movies long ago in the 70s, and it's just nice to know that he still made her do the scene, sure, and she was uncomfortable with it, but he made that, he helped her try to be more comfortable with it. And when she was telling him that he didn't want, she couldn't do it, he would just tell her, like, it's okay, that's okay. Just take your time, it's okay. Instead of, like, taking the Kubrick route where she, like, would have been screaming in her face. But that's
I'm more of a fan of the I'm more of a fan of the Paul Verhoeven route. Everyone's naked, then I have to whip my dick out, and we're all naked.
Everyone can be naked.
I mean, to be fair, like, if I were a movie director, that would probably be what I would do.
To be like, all right, everyone's naked, here we go.
Yeah, if I expect you to be naked, then I will be naked too. Like, I completely understand that. Like, there's just got to be.
We're all adults here.
Yeah, we're all adults here, and I ain't got something you ain't seen, and vice versa. So, like, yeah, and again, credit to David Lynch for actually, giving a shit and not acting like a psychopath, which so many American and just film auteurs in general act like psychos. Hitchcock, Kubrick.
Polanski.
We could just oh god.
Yeah. But
we probably shouldn't even mention him, but raping teenagers,
Well,
great.
yeah, but
great.
This
yikes.
Yeah.
Do you know about the Eye of the Duck?
The Eye of the Duck?
Oh, shit. Okay, so, and I'm not making this up. So David Lynch had a quote, and I'm going to read it, and it's not long, and I will do my best to get through it quickly. But I think that this is, if you've never heard this, it came out around the time of this film, but he went on record saying, I sort of go by a duck when I work on a film, because if you study a duck, you'll see certain things. You'll see a bill, and this is real, Jess. Okay, like I'm actually really glad you've never heard this, because I'm this is gonna blow your mind. How fucking insane this is. And the bill is a certain texture and a certain length. Then you'll see a head, and the features on the head are a certain texture, and it's a certain shape, and it goes into the neck. The texture of the bill, for instance, is very smooth and has quite precise detail in it, and it reminds you somewhat of the legs. The legs are a little bit bigger and a little more rubbery, but it's enough so that your eyes go back and forth. Now, the body being so big, it can be softer and the texture is not so detailed. It's just kind of a cloud. And the key to the whole duck is the eye and where the eye is placed. And it has to be placed in the head, and it's the most detailed, and it's like a little jewel. And if it was fixed, sitting on the bill, it would be two things that were too busy, battling. They would not do so well. And if it were sitting in the middle of the body, it would get lost. But it's so perfectly placed to show off a jewel right in the middle of the head, like that, next to that S-curve with the bill sitting out in front, but with enough distance so that the eye is very, very, very well secluded and set out. So when you're working on a film, a lot of the times you can get the bill and the legs and the body and everything, but this Eye of the Duck is a certain scene, this jewel, that if it's there, it's absolutely beautiful. It's just fantastic. Fucking A.
I can kind of agree. I can kind of understand what he means by that. I don't like the. I wouldn't pick a duck, I guess, but I understand the sentiment.
I mean, I get it. Like, not like being a troll. Like,
you know what that scene is for me in this movie?
The diner scene?
No, it's
really?
It's the Rebecca Del Rio scene. Where she's singing, crying, but in Spanish by Roy Orbison. That scene just, I don't know. It I feel it in my bones. Like I just feel her, the way she sings it, and the look on her face, and with Betty and Rita just kind of breaking down, because this is towards the end of the fantasy. This is when the fantasy is coming apart, because they're getting too close to the murder mystery solving, which is essentially, Naomi Watts coming out of her dream state. And there's just this, I don't know, there's just a brokenness to it. Like, there's just, you see it in the characters' eyes, and that they, they love each other, and they want this to kind of be forever. And they can tell that it's not, and that something's not right, and that something is going to end, and that whenever that time comes, which is going to be soon, it's going to change everything, and it's going to change everything drastically for the worst and permanently. And I don't know, Rebecca Del Rio's voice and her singing that song, which I love. I love Roy Orbison, and I love Crying. Easily one of my, top favorite songs of all time. But yeah, that is the Eye of the Duck for me. Which now I feel like we need to have an Eye of the Duck segment in every podcast.
I say the same thing. Boy, thank you, David Lynch. You know what my Eye of the Duck scene is in the film? It's not the diner scene. Because honestly, that's kind of the David Lynch fan.
That's the most David Lynch scene, I guess. In the
and
movie.
Also for rabid David Lynch fans, everyone says that's the Eye of the Duck scene, because now everyone goes back through his movies and which scene is the Eye of the Duck scene? For me, personally, it is the scene between Justin Theroux and Monty Montgomery out at the ranch. I find that scene
the cowboy.
Yeah, the cowboy. I find that scene to be so interesting.
You know what's great about that scene? I guess Monty Montgomery could not remember his lines to save his life. And they tried partly at some point to kind of hold up cards, but then it would just look like he was reading or he couldn't read it or whatever. So they took forever to do it, I guess.
Which is not surprising considering how he's not an actor.
No, not at all. And I mean, that scene, I would say the diner scene and that scene are probably the more Lynchian, cryptic sort of figure this puzzle piece out.
Well, it's got the flashing lights, just like every other Lynch thing ever.
Yes, so, if you're epileptic, you can't be a fan of David Lynch movies. I'm sorry.
But yeah, I really love that scene, and that is, for me, Eye of the Duck. 100%. That is the Eye of the Duck scene for me. I mean, look, and the Eye of the Duck, you could interpret it as the scene that essentially explains the movie, or you could say it's the scene that's kind of the standout scene, or the kind of the scene that is the microcosm of the film as a whole. And I don't know if it's exactly the microcosm, but for me, it's the scene where I'm just thinking about the film now, sitting here talking about the film with you. And talking about everything we've talked about so far and kind of our feelings on the film. The thing that stands out to me is that scene, even more over the diner scene, which, I feel like the diner scene is good, but I feel like everybody just shits their pants at how great that scene is, and it was ruined for me because I'd already seen that scene a million times. Yeah,
it's the one that, if anybody's making some show about, top 10 best moments of blah, 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 and then you get the clip.
Yeah, it's blah, and showing it out of context is not helpful.
Well, it's not representative of the movie at all. Really.
That's my point. It literally has nothing to do with the movie.
Not really. I mean, it's
you could take it out and you wouldn't miss it because it doesn't do anything.
Right. In that same video that I watched on YouTube, I can't remember who. I think the YouTuber is London City Girl or something like that. But she does just video essays.
Shout out to your girl, London City Girl. Give them some love.
Right.
Sure.
And she talks about that's her theory on that scene is that the bum, just the scary bum is sort of representative of Naomi Watts' Diane's character and all of her failure. That's representative of all her failure and lack of talent and everything ugly that she hates about herself is that character. And him saying that he hopes he never sees it outside of his dream is sort of her saying that, and that she just that's what she's most terrified is that she's a failure and that she has no talent and that she's never going to be anything. And so that's sort of, if you take that theory, then that's Herb's character. Herb and Dan sort of just encounter that, which it would just be that manifestation of those feelings in a physical being. So I mean, I can see that, but agreed, you could probably take that scene out and nobody would miss it.
Well, let's be honest here. I am personally scared of Bonnie Aarons jumping out from behind a dumpster.
Well.
And you know what? I interviewed Bonnie Aarons, and I'm terrified of Bonnie Aarons jumping out from behind a dumpster. Because Bonnie Aarons, by the way, I know you know this, but if you don't know who Bonnie Aarons is, she would go on to headline her own horror film, which unfortunately was not very good. In spite of her, it was not very good. She is fantastic. No fault of her. She's great. But she was actually the nun in The Nun.
Yeah.
And in The Conjuring 2, which The Conjuring 2 has the best nun scene in it. And honest to God, I kid you not, I honestly think The Conjuring 2 has one of the scariest scenes I've ever seen. That scene in the study with the nun is fucking terrible.
I would agree. I mean, I liked The Conjuring 2. I didn't.
I like The Conjuring 1 and 2.
Yep. But yeah,
I know that they have happy endings, but like,
Yeah, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Like I don't hate that happy ending.
Movies that don't have happy endings, horror movies that don't have happy endings aren't lame.
I mean, hey, I'm all for bleak endings. I mean, look at the ending of this movie, but
No, but Bonnie Aarons, she's great in this. I'm not given in much to do, but now she's attached to, the scene from this movie that everybody remembers, and that's good.
And she get to work. I mean, hey, she's got a David Lynch movie. Like,
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people. Yeah, there's a lot of people in this movie that got to work with David Lynch. Tony Longo, who is a fantastic character actor. One of the things I texted you that I still don't know why. Why is Billy Ray Cyrus in this movie?
I don't know, and I feel like I feel like there is a reason, but I don't know, and I was stupid and didn't look it up before
David
the
Lynch,
podcast.
Secret fan of Achy Breaky Heart. Which,
I do kind of feel like it might be that. No,
would that be surprising?
It wouldn't, because you know what, David Lynch, he is, but he's also like painfully normal in a lot of ways. Like the man is just like everything, Look at the way like the teenagers talk in Twin Peaks. Like it's
from another era.
It's from another era. Yeah, he's
like
a man.
David
He's
Lynch.
Decidedly dedicated to the 50s, but he doesn't dedicate it into the. What I like best about it is that he doesn't idealize the 50s. Like he uses the music from it, which I love. Like I said, I love the doo-wop music in this movie. I love the Roy Orbison music and everything he does, and the 50s and 60s. He doesn't present in a way like he presents the idyllic in a sinister way, and I mean that's best represented in Blue Velvet.
Oh yeah,
which opens up with a literal white picket fence and then a detached ear. I mean, so I love his portrayal of it because it's something that he still I think very much cares for and that he kind of has a nostalgia for, sure, because that's the time he grew up in. But he also, I think Mike White mentioned it when you guys talked about Elephant Man. The man loves nuclear explosions. I mean, he puts them in almost everything, and that's a leftover from him being a kid in a time where they were prepping for possible nuclear bomb, explosions to happen. And I like that warped vision of it where he has this, like, he has a love for it, but he also understands that there is a lot of scary and bad shit that isn't, entwined with those time periods.
Yeah. I like you said, David Lynch is like, I think David Lynch offsets his like normalcy by the stuff that he makes, because I think David Lynch is probably not boring, but like painfully normal, like in real life.
Oh yeah.
And that's a good thing, because that's where all this came from.
Yeah, like he paints, he meditates, he smokes American spirits, and he drinks coffee, and that's what he does. And I mean and
he's got hair that
oh my god, I hope my hair goes that way when I hope I graze in that way.
I wish I could do my hair the way he does his hair, because
Me
it is
too.
like it's like perfectly elevated, but at the same time it has like that like fluidity to it.
Yeah, it doesn't look like too molded. It looks like kind of natural and soft. I just want to touch it.
Yeah, there's a lot. I think.
I will say that Billy Ray Cyrus. Here's the headline for this article. Billy Ray Cyrus says the devil and David Lynch destroyed his family.
Well, who destroyed his family was him.
Yep.
Because he's an asshole.
But
I actually don't know if Billy Ray Cyrus is an asshole, but
I
don't know what kind
of. I have no idea.
I don't know what kind of parent you have to be to raise Miley Cyrus. Let's just put it that way.
And probably not a very present one.
Yeah, right. There's just, look, this is a David Lynch movie, so there's a lot of weird roles filled by, I wouldn't say like recognizable people, but like recognizable
character actors. I mean,
James Cameron.
Yep. what's his name is Wally in the movie, but he's the director who she auditions for.
James Karen.
Yeah, James Karen, yeah.
Mark Pellegrino, a.k.a. The Devil.
Yeah. And...
Or I guess Rita's boyfriend from Dexter is what I knew him as before The Devil and Supernatural.
Right. That's true. He was Rita's boyfriend.
He sure was.
Lucifer. You know what? His whole... I will say that this is David Lynch's probably... It's both his sexiest movie and also probably his funniest.
It's like very genre bending.
There's a lot of really humorous things that happen in this movie. I mean, the whole botched hitman sequence with, what's his name? Lucifer.
Mark Pellegrino.
Yes.
Which, by the way, great name.
Yeah, Mark Pellegrino. And he, shoots one guy, and in the middle of trying to make it look like a suicide, he accidentally, shoots through the wall and shoots somebody else. And his reaction to it is just, oh, man, God damn it.
But then it turns out in real life that he's not a bumbling idiot at all.
No, he's an expert hitman. In going back to the dream thing, that's, her sort of like, man, I wish I would have hired the bumbling idiot who couldn't have fulfilled the hit because now I regret it, but I hired one who is, an expert.
I think one of my favorite things in the movie, that really shows you the kind of the dichotomy between the dream and the reality is that scene where she goes, "What does the key open?" And he stops short of saying, "Bitch, it doesn't open anything. It is literally to show you that she is dead."
Yep.
And he just goes, and then leaves. And it's like the naivete of the character in reality, then transplanted into the dream that you see before reality is shockingly gross amounts of naivete.
Oh, yeah. And I mean,
to the point of just if you're actually this way, you're a complete loss.
Right. Well, I mean, it's showed when she gets off the airplane, when she's coming down the escalator in the airport and she's just all smiles, and then they do that strange, weird ADR dubbing with her voice that kind of makes it seem, like an old movie, her about to go start her new career, and she's just, it's plucky, and it's because it's the exact opposite of what she is in real life.
So, how did you interpret the finale of the film?
Well, she killed herself.
Okay, just making sure that we're that's not a open for I mean, it could be open for interpretation, and I'm not telling someone this is open and closed, right. But
David Lynch would never let you do that.
Which, you know what? Honest to God, kudos to the man. Because someone going your interpretation of my film is wrong, man, you're a fucking buzzkill, aren't you?
Right.
I gotta give
but then also not giving you answers.
Yeah. Well, but look, that's okay. I'm okay with someone not giving answers more than someone who just says, all right, wholesale, here's everything.
I'm fine with not giving answers. It is entirely justifiable that in certain movies, things need to be answered. If you're making a certain type of movie and you set up certain things, then you have to have payoff and you have to have answers to those. But not everything. And if you are making a different type of movie that's not, that's exploring much more broad themes and more, existential themes, then there doesn't need to be answers. And making concrete answers does sort of stifle the conversation and stifle the thought process and analytical process of it. But no, I think that at the end, she's woken up from her dream and she's still haunted by it and she's still, devastated by it. And I think that, she just kills herself, and that's it. And that's bleak, but
to quote Goodfellas, and that's dead.
I think that it's very, I think it's a representation of how the industry sort of treats, up and coming actors who, once they're, or just any actors, honestly, once they've reached their expiration date, once they've hit their expiration date, you're gone. I mean, unless, you've made it huge big time, if you're a multi-millionaire actor, sure, but if you're a working actor, who by that definition is, that means they have to work to still pay the bills. They're
not making that sweet.
Yeah, they're not making 2 movies a year and being like, okay, I'm good.
I can make all that MCU or Star Wars or Friends or Seinfeld money.
Yeah, insert IP here. Yeah, it's...
You'll notice that Matthew Perry and David Schwimmer don't really have to do much anymore. I wonder why.
No. And I mean, well...
Or Lisa Kudrow, or any of them.
No, Jennifer Aniston still does stuff, though, but nothing good.
Boy, isn't that unfortunate? Michael Richards, on the other hand, solidly staying away from anything. Especially stages at the comedy clubs.
Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it is, you know, I was reading more about it and how this is like kind of like a love letter to Hollywood, but I think it's more of like a reality check to like say like, you know, I work in this industry, I'm part of this industry, but at the same time, like, I don't agree or I don't want to be part of this industry in the way that it is what you said, like tearing out people's like souls and stomping all over them. Like, and that scene when they're at the party at the end and they're like laughing in her face is just
it's awful.
It's awful.
That's the scene that makes her put out the hit. Like that's that's when, you know, Rita or, you know, Camilla at this point is like, nah, I don't need you anymore. I'm hooking up with the director and also this other lady. So bye. And it's just it's so sad and it's heartbreaking and it's just I mean, I don't condone putting out hits on people, but I understand why.
Kinda deserved it. Kinda sorta deserved it. And you know what? I think it's kind of unfortunate that Dave... I mean, look, and this is, you know, this is something that we will undoubtedly talk about on the next podcast when we're talking about the best of the year, the best things we watched last year, regardless of whether or not they came out in 2019. It is unfortunate that this movie didn't get, you know, the quote-unquote praise from the industry in regards to the awards. Because I think it's, you know, really fucking good.
Oh, yeah. I mean...
And he just got nominated for Best Director, and that's it. Like, that's it.
Yeah. I mean, and honestly, that was probably just we're going to give this to you knowing that we're not going to give you an Oscar.
Considering how the movie that won...
Well, won in 2000.
You're gonna be so upset. I'll give you a hint. It's definitely a film based on the life of a real person, directed by Ron Howard.
Was it Ray or Walk the Line? I don't remember.
A Beautiful Mind.
Ow.
Not only did it win Best Director, it also won Best Picture, which, by the way, as much as I hate the Oscars, which I do, and like you, we were talking about this again off podcast, I was a fan of the Oscars because it was like, oh, it's so cool. It's like the movie thing. And now I'm like, yeah, it's so dumb because it's the movie thing. Like, it's not representative of people who actually like movies. It's representative of like
it's when you get to the point where you realize everything is a club.
It's a popularity
and they're
contest.
all just giving each other awards over and over and over again. Then you realize, oh, this isn't actually about movies at all.
You say awards, I say hand jobs. They're jerking each other off.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
It's just a big circle jerk. Like, the Oscars are a circle jerk, and also they're not really representative of what good film is, because Green Room is a great movie. Green Room is a good movie. Green Book, on the other hand, not so much. Yeah, this was the year where Ron Howard was nominated, along with, get this nonsense, Ridley Scott, Robert Altman, Peter Jackson, and David Lynch.
Wow. What was Ridley Scott nominated for that year?
Black Hawk Down.
Oh.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't... Movie, but... No, fuck no. That movie is... Ugh. But, yeah, I'm not a war movie guy at all. However, I will say this much. Beautiful Mind, definitely not my kind of movie either.
No. I mean... I occasionally like, you know, a biopic, but I tend to like the ones from, like, I tend to like ones that are, you know, older. Like, any kind of biopic that was made after, like, 95 is all kind of the same.
Like, for fuck's sake, do something interesting. Like, don't just
Or they're made about people that you already fucking know about.
Yeah, like, look, and here's the thing.
I don't need a Johnny Cash movie. I know about Johnny Cash.
But here's the thing. The Elton John biopic was pretty fucking good.
Was it?
Which is, yeah, but here's the thing. You know why? Because they actually did something with it. They didn't gloss over the fact that he was a drug addict. They didn't gloss over a lot of the things that Bohemian Rhapsody glossed over.
Right.
which is fine because that movie was directed by a child molester.
Right.
But like you said, they're all kind of samey. And that's a problem. Mm-hmm. Because
they're
when
very
something
formulaic.
when something like this gets nominated for Best Director alongside something that is cut and paste, which A Beautiful Mind is, and I will stand by that. And if you like A Beautiful Mind,
is.
It's very cut and paste. It's very like troubled genius. Let's talk about that. Let's do that. And Stephen Hawking and what was the one where Benedict Cumberbatch was playing?
The
Alan Turing.
Yeah.
It's like they're all the same. Like, and one he has a physical disability, and one he has a mental disability, and one he's just gay. So at the time,
a disability.
At the time it was seen as a disability. Like, it's like I don't fucking care because honestly, the movies aren't going to give the story the like amount of room to breathe that it deserves, and it's not going to be interesting anyways. And so it's like, and then this movie got nominated for Best Director, and it honestly, like, up against those 4 movies, it should have won.
Yeah.
But David Lynch ended up winning an Oscar this year anyways, so it's fine.
That's true.
And did you read about what his response was when he got?
But you're all very lovely people.
No, that was even better than that. He just goes, he says, and I quote, he says, tidbit, which is what he calls Laura Dern, which is fantastic,
That's
by
adorable.
the way. He says, he says that the movies are not, quote, not our ideas. We're just lucky if we catch them. And like, holy shit, that's David Lynch.
Yep.
And more people like David Lynch need to be recognized for what they do than people that come out like Rami Malek and just go, I'm so good at what I do. It's like, yeah, okay.
Okay. Have fun. Right. Nobody's going to care in like 10 years.
Yeah, everyone will look back and go, boy, wasn't Bohemian Rhapsody really out of touch with its portrayal of someone who was gay? Well, yeah, everything, film editing, for which it was nominated for. But yeah, like Mulholland Drive really is one of those films that there are these films that come out that are quote unquote love letters to the industry. And I feel like when Hollywood watched this movie, they were like, yikes.
Right, and the thing is it's funny because like I said before, David Lynch loves LA. He loves it. Like he will never leave it. He lives there. That's where he works. It's what he does. He does everything there. But again, like with his portrayal of like the 50s, 60s universe, world, there's good stuff, sure. And, LA is the city of dreams, and the 50s and 60s were a prosperous time for for a lot of people, not, anybody who wasn't white, but that's fine. And
that's pretty fucking woke of you, just saying. Right. So fucking woke.
But he also recognizes that there's a dark side and a seedy side, because that's just the human condition, and that for everything that's good, there's bad to go along with it.
And that's okay.
That's fine. But the thing is you have to let people experience it, that, and like giving Oscars and stuff to movies that are always just, sure, biopics never end really happy, I guess, because they're always about people who died.
Either by drugs or killed themselves.
Right, exactly, or were murdered. But that's for like the everyday people, and for just, Twin Peaks is about a small town, and it's small town people doing small town things, but there's a scary dark underside to it, and those things have consequences, and it doesn't matter how naive and precious and optimistic you are about things. The bad stuff's still going to get you. It will get you eventually. And whether you're not, you can bounce back from it, that's your character.
And there's bad stuff in every single city. And that's the thing about Blue Velvet and Twin Peaks that I find fascinating, is like pulling the curtain back on that, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like it's unveiling that.
Yeah. So, one more thing I want to ask you, since we're kind of on the topic of this Oscar baiting, weird Hollywood love letter, non-Hollywood love letter in the case of Mulholland Drive, or more kind of a reality check. Mm-hmm. In your mind, what has been in like the last, 10, 15 years, the most self-aggrandizing film to get nominated for an Oscar?
Oh, jeez.
Because I personally think it's either La La Land or The Artist. Because those are so self-aggrandizing.
Yeah. I'd probably have to, I would say probably The Artist.
It's like so self-congratulatory. In like a way that Mulholland Drive isn't.
Yeah, I would say that the artist probably takes that cake because, I mean, yeah, I would love to see a movie about the fall and like transition between silent pictures and audio and, you know, talkies as they called them. Because that time for those actors was fucking scary and career ruining for a lot of them. And yeah, sure, we see that in the artist and we get the, oh no, is he gonna kill himself kind of thing. But it's done so quickly, and it's just, you know, it's fixed by a cute dog, and everything is just so like, ha ha, everything's okay still, I can still act, that's alright. It's like, no, a lot of those people lost their fucking jobs and died in obscurity, and that's sad. It is a sad time. You want to make a movie about that time period? I would absolutely watch a movie about that time period. But do it in a realistic fashion, not in a way that makes it's just so sanitized of like, yep, nope, see, everything was just fine. We didn't ruin anybody's... We were very accepting. No.
They all transitioned happily. The end.
Right.
Like, no, fuck you. That's not it. It's not.
So is there anything about this movie that you didn't like? There has to be.
You mean, you know, it wasn't anything like I outright didn't like.
Mm-hmm.
I think that, I mean, and I'm sure this is probably something you had an issue with the film, and this kind of, you could apply this to David Lynch just in general. It's a rather drab film.
It is, yeah.
But, like, that's just kind of David Lynch, like...
That's my problem across the board with David Lynch stuff, aside from Blue Velvet, which is maybe probably why it's my favorite, is that everything, the color palette of these movies are so bland and drab. It's yellows and browns and tans and beiges and blacks, and it's just... Lost Highway is, like, I know that I talked about that in the podcast on Lost Highway, is that it's just an unpleasant, ugly-looking movie because of that color choice. And that is... I don't know. That's his aesthetic. I mean, it's not my personal aesthetic, and I like that he brightens things up more. You know, you get those crisp whites and greens and blues and Blue Velvet, and I like that. I like a lot of color in my movies, although I am a huge fan of black and white movies, but
there's a difference between something knowingly being black and white and then something like this just being devoid of color entirely.
Right.
Which is a choice.
And also, I guess, kind of representative of LA. Sure. LA's not the most colorful city I've ever been to. Everything is pretty boxy and white and brown. Yeah.
It depends. I mean, I will say that, yeah, saying that Lost Highway is drab, like, this movie is equally as drab, right?
Agreed, yeah. And I mean, Twin Peaks does too, but Twin Peaks, I think it works because it's set in that foresty setting. Where you want where you want those
Pacific Northwest is drab.
Yeah, you want that dreary sky and the browns and dark greens of the trees and everything, and the lodge and everything. That it works, but yeah, no. In this movie and in Lost Highway, I'm just like, can we do something else? But yeah, I would say that is my biggest thing that I would have liked to see a little bit more color. I guess if we're talking story wise, I am less interested in the mob part of this movie. Specifically, I don't know, the whole Justin Theroux and his dealings with the mob and all of that just kind of, I think, takes some of the momentum out of the movie. I think sometimes, like, we're there and we're dealing, especially, like, when we're with the man from the other place in Twin Peaks, who is the dancing man.
Michael Anderson.
Yes, Michael Anderson. Specifically, like, when we're with him, which I still don't... I'm not quite clear on him, and I know that he's very much a part of the dream sequence, so I'm not putting in a lot of, thought to try and figure out what exactly...
But you realize in that scene that was like those were like prosthetic arms and shit?
Yes, they gave him like super long arms and legs. It was weird.
It is. Yeah, but like that's the thing about this movie, like there is that David Lynch things going on, but like I think it's really like dialed back.
Yeah. I think that I mean, if you look at something like this and then you look at something like Twin Peaks: The Return, yeah, there's there's no 10-minute long scenes of someone sweeping a floor. Like, that's not happening in this movie. And I don't know if that's, David Lynch, after Dune, made it a point to have final cut on everything that he does. So this is the movie that he wanted. And it is how he wanted it to be. So he dialed it back himself. It wasn't like I don't think it was influence on studio heads or producers saying, hey, you gotta kind of like tone back the weird shit for the main audience.
Yeah, I don't think so either. But I think he just did it because he wanted to tell a different kind of story. And he did. He told a story that didn't rely on that. It relied on other things. Mm-hmm. Which is fine. So what would you give the film out of 5?
I'm going to go ahead and give it a 4.5 out of 5.
Whoa.
Yeah. That's the biggest rating I've ever given to anything on the show, I think.
Just wait. You might give a 5 to something by the end of this year. You never know.
I give away 5s very sparingly.
Just Byard June is right around the corner.
It's true.
In 6 months. In 6 months. So maybe just be like, I want to give a movie a 5. So I'm just going to pick stuff.
Litzomania.
Yeah, for myself, I'll probably give it a 4, like 4 blue keys out of 5.
4 blue keys.
4 blue keys.
4 silencios out of 5.
Yeah. What does this open?
Silencio.
What is this?
It opens the key to reality, which is sad. Don't do it.
Yeah. And then she just opens it and disappears.
Yep.
Bum, bum, bum.
I really like that ending sequence between the Club Silencio and to that point where the dream sequence is just entirely starting to fall apart. So then things are disappearing and cracking. I think it's a fantastic transition.
Again, I think it's like the most straightforward portrayal of dream sequences in a David Lynch movie. It's like very, very straightforward. Mm-hmm. In a way that like you don't expect with Lynch.
It's like
which is cool.
Training wheels.
Yeah, it's like baby's first David Lynch movie. But like not because like this movie's amazing.
Yeah.
Let's take a break, and when we come back, we'll talk about what January, now proper January, has to offer for the Culture Cast.
Help you, mister?
You got a telephone.
Out and back.
This way?
Something for your car?
Well, you can put what ethyl you can get in the tank.
All righty.
Would you mind checking those radiator hoses?
I'll do that. Take a look at my snakes if you have time.
Weird place for a telephone booth.
Operator.
I'd like to report a truck driver that's been endangering my life.
In that case, I'll have to give you the police, sir.
Right, well, give me the police.
Sir, which department do you want?
Whichever's closer.
What number are you calling from?
This number is 9821.
What's your name, sir?
David Mann.
How do you spell that, please?
M-A-N-N. That's 2 N's. I'd like to report a truck driver that's been endangering my life. Name again? David Mann.
That's right. January, we were going to be kicking off another director's filmography, but this time, not the filmography as a whole, because honest to God, Jess, what could we say that people haven't already said about E.T. or Jaws? They're good.
I can say that I don't like E.T.
Yeah, I was going to say, they're good or they're overrated at best. We are going to be talking about Spielberg's B-sides. And we're going to start that by taking a look at Duel. I want to say Dune.
Dune.
Well,
we're doing Dune every month from now on.
And Mike White would probably be
Mike White and you and me just do Dune forever.
It's Dune. Every podcast is Dune.
We just get to the point where we're literally just table reading the script.
Dune minute by minute, like that Goodfellas minute by minute podcast. That Dune minute by minute. Oh God, let's not start any more podcasts for the love of Christ. But yeah, no, you and I are going to be talking about Duel. If you're listening to this now, there will probably be a best of what we watched last year podcast in between here and there, or maybe after that one. So that will be coming on the feed at some point soon in the next week. But yeah, you and I will be talking about Duel, a film that I have never seen.
Oh, okay.
But it's pretty much just Jaws, but with a car, right?
A truck, but yes.
Yeah, car. Sorry, trucker Jess.
There is a movie called The Car, if you would like to watch that. It has James Brolin in it.
I don't, but I'd rather watch Duel, otherwise known as Dune, but said incorrectly. So throughout next month, we're actually going to be covering some films that maybe you didn't know Steven Spielberg did. Maybe you've never.
Steven Spielberg would like to forget that he did.
Yeah. So we're going to be talking
on that episode.
Which one is that? Which one is that?
Bugsy Malone.
That is not a Steven Spielberg.
It's not.
film.
No.
No, that is actually... God, you just let the cat out of the bag big time. That's okay. So February, we're going to be talking about musicals. But if that were directed by Steven Spielberg, people would probably know about it. I swear.
Who's it directed by?
Alan Parker.
That means nothing to me.
Jess Byard, film fan.
I totally forgot.
Apparently not film fan enough. Alan Parker.
Evita.
Director of films as Birdie, The Wall, Evita.
Oh, The Wall, yeah.
Angela's Ashes, Mississippi Burning.
I like a lot of those movies.
Angel Heart.
I'm bad with names.
I love when people say, I don't know actors' names. Oh my God. Yeah, it's hard to learn names. I'm not saying you, but I've heard people be like, what's that guy's name in that movie? I'm like, oh my God.
Actors I can remember more, but for some reason it's hard for me to, directors... old white male directors all just kind of blend in together.
That's pretty woke of you right there. Old white male directors, might I add. Yeah, so January we're going to be
name me an old white female director.
Catherine Bigelow.
You got one.
That's one more than you thought I could name.
Is she old?
What's old? She's Hollywood. She's Hollywood old. How's that?
Okay, that's fair.
If we're still on Mulholland Drive, she's Hollywood old. And you know what? Probably being married to James Cameron aged her 100 years.
Yeah, that's true.
Also, Catherine Bigelow, definitely 68 years old.
Oh, I guess she's kind of old.
Which is shocking because...
Sorry if there's any people who are 60 and older and we just called you old listening to this, but...
But I'm not saying you're old in real life, I'm saying you're Hollywood old. Which means nothing, realistically. But yeah, so we're going to be doing Steven Spielberg B-sides. So we're going to be covering Duel, 1941, which... Looking forward to, because I haven't watched that in forever. Always, which I've never seen. And
I've never seen that either.
And Empire of the Sun, which I am not looking forward to. Yeah.
Christian Bale.
Christian Bale, who... And how was it? You and me, we're fucking done professionally. Christian Bale, I'm not the biggest fan of Mr. Bale, which is fine. I don't have to be. But it's child actor Christian Bale, which is fun. And then, February is when we're going to be covering musicals. So we're going to be talking about some fun stuff. But I won't give that whole month away. But yes, we'll be talking about Bugsy Malone. Yes, Father Malone is excited. I watched it, but I was stoned, so that doesn't count. I was too stoned to stay awake. Let's put it that way. So I'm very much looking forward to watching that, and it's probably good because that one Coca-Cola song came from the movie. So.
I honestly can't wait. I can't wait to see this movie. It's been on my to watch list for fucking ever. And I've just never really had a reason to watch it by myself. So
it's I can tell you that there is no erotica in that film like there was in Mulholland Drive.
There's no sexy lesbian hookups in this children's movie.
Well, see, here's the thing. It's not
it is
a kids movie
played by kids for adults.
a movie featuring children who murder each other, but don't murder each other in a graphic way. Yeah. So yeah, it's we're going to be talking about that. I wish that were directed by Steven Spielberg because more people would know about it. But at the same time,
my wires were crossed because we planned these podcasts like at the same. You were planning the themes for the months in like the same text.
That's true.
And I think my brain just like connected Steven Spielberg. I just want that to be a thing.
Why is
trying to will it into existence?
Why is this not? Why did he not fucking direct this movie? Oh my god. But yeah, so until then, until Duel, until us talking about the best things we watched in 2019, where can people find you, Jess?
You can find me on Twitter at writer Jess Byard, and you can also find me on Instagram. I have been dabbling in some digital art recently, so if you like weird, surreal kind of shit, you can check that out there. And also pictures of my cats, if you also like cats. And then you can also find me on our podcast, Chris, The One Season Show, which we just kicked off our second season talking about Kitchen Confidential, and we're going to be recording the second episode here soon, so you can have plenty of time to get caught up.
And you should, because it's good. Unlike Werewolf, it's good.
But you should still listen to that season.
Yeah, you should. I mean, if you want some laughs, laughs with 2 Fs, you should check it out. As for myself, here you can find me, Twitter, casualty_Chris. I'm not going to tell you my name on Instagram because I don't want you following me on Instagram. I just post pictures of myself and my wife. And, like, do you really want to see that? Like, is that exciting to you? Follow CultureCast and Culture Shocked on Instagram. Actually, just follow CultureCast on Instagram. If you were listening to this podcast, you know how to spell it. You'll find it there. Casualty_Chris on Twitter. CultureCast.com. What else?
Patreon.
Chronicles from the... Patreon. Money, give, please. Yes, money. We like if you do that. Good. What else? I was going to keep plugging
Catalog
my
of the Crypt.
Cujo of the Crypt. Chronicles from the Crypt. That's a podcast that still exists. We're still doing that. It's Tales from the Crypt. If that's your thing, cool. If not, don't listen to it, I guess. Starting now in January of 2020, the Barney Miller podcast, which many of you who are listening to this go, what the fuck is that? Barney Miller is a detective show set in New York from the late 70s, early 80s, and that is taking the place of the Kolchak tapes, which is another show that you probably just went, about, which is fine. That's cool. But I'm doing that with Mike White, and we're still doing Dreams for Sale, and you can find me on the projection booth from time to time, and you can actually find Jess on there, too.
You can. I'll actually be recording an episode this month.
Oh. I think I'm recording one, too, I think. Maybe. It's been pushed back so many times, I don't know at this point. I think we're doing it. But the funny thing is, and Mike already told me I can give him shit about it, we actually did the movie that he's doing before him.
Whoa, what?
Aerosplit. Wow, that was either a really bad canned reaction or you being serious.
No.
He's doing Eros Plus Massacre, which is a Japanese new wave film that he picked for me to watch in Mike White March in 2018. So, yes.
All right.
Mike is having me on. I'm not sure you would go out of your way to, though.
I don't know. What? It's a Japanese weird movie?
Sounds like something I'd watch.
Japanese weird movie podcast with Jess Pye.
Hey, I'm going to be doing Horrors of the Malformed Man, which is also a weird Japanese movie, so...
Yeah, no, Eros Plus Massacre is a Japanese new wave film that is very weird, but not like in a Tetsuo the Iron Man way, just like in a kind of like a David Lynch weird way. So
well, now I definitely
it's interesting.
Watch it.
Yeah, and you know, we already did a podcast on it, so go and listen to our podcast, and then listen to Mike's podcast, and check out Jess on the projection booth, and hear more often. And welcome to 2020. The nightmare is still real. We're still living in it, and keep listening to this podcast because it's probably a mild reprieve from the day-to-day nightmare called life. And make sure to check out the next episode.
Silencio.